Man casually tossed 5 bracelets in front of him. Immediately, the blind man in the distance heard the sound. He thought this would allow him to determine the target's location. However, just as the assassin was about to launch an attack, Abdul suddenly summoned his stand, Magician's Red, and launched a surprise attack on the assassin. But the blind man had already sensed it. With a nimble dodge, he directly evaded Magician's Red's attack while also scratching Abdul's neck. Abdul didn't expect the blind man's abilities to be so formidable. However, the blind man's arm was also burned by Abdul's flames, making him more cautious. But just as he was about to finish off Abdul, Jotaro suddenly sprinted into the distance. The blind man instantly deduced from the stride length that the person was Jotaro, so he immediately controlled his stand to chase after the target. However, just as he was about to catch up, Jotaro suddenly grabbed Iggy off the ground. It turned out that Jotaro had long discovered the blind man's secret. As long as he made good use of this dog, he would be able to find the location of the main body. Jotaro then pressed Iggy to the ground and told the puppy to quickly tell him where the enemy's next attack would come from. Seeing that the dog's life was in danger, Iggy immediately activated his stand. Iggy still wanted to escape, but Jotaro wouldn't let him off so easily. However, just as Jotaro thought he could find the enemy's location this way, unexpectedly, the next moment, Iggy's flying height suddenly decreased. Seeing that their position was about to be exposed, Jotaro had no choice but to use Star Platinum to fiercely kick the ground the instant they landed. Using the momentum, the two returned to the air again. However, this action also made the blind man understand the problem. He then began to use his stand to frantically pursue the two. But soon, Jotaro spotted the blind man not far away. However, just as Jotaro thought that as long as he didn't land, the blind man wouldn't be able to determine his location, unexpectedly, the next moment, countless grains of sand suddenly splashed up from the ground. It turned out that the blind man planned to use the vibration of the rebounding sand to determine Jotaro's location. The blind man then controlled his stand to launch an attack on Jotaro. Seeing this, Jotaro immediately summoned Star Platinum to fight back. In the end, he was still cut by the opponent. Seeing this, Iggy was so scared he almost peed himself, so he began to deliberately lower his height, completely exposing Jotaro's position to the opponent, and planned to use Jotaro to save his dog's life. At this point, the situation was already very critical. However, just as the blind man was about to deliver the final blow to Jotaro, Jotaro suddenly summoned Star Platinum.